Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new pro-revenge stories. The first story is called, Insurance Writes a Bad Check. This happened in 2015. At the time, I was 20 and started taking my first steps into the real world of being an adult. I got my first job and bought my first used car. My commute took me through an interchange, also known as the worst bottleneck in California at the time. For those not from around here, basically, those two freeways merge for about a mile and a half. Then they split into two freeways again. The result is a mess of lane merges for a little over a minute, with everyone moving at 70 miles per hour. And, of course, there's always that one jerk who realizes he got in the wrong lane and needs to cut over all the lanes on the freeway to do so. I had got my first used car the day before. I was borrowing my dad's spare car before this point, but this was my first car in my name. My mum took some pictures of it before I left for work. Once I got to that interchange, a motorcycle gang started splitting lanes on either side of me. Easily 15 to 20 of them, and it felt like they weren't going to stop coming. One of them decided to switch lanes and cut off the car in front of me. They braked hard. I braked hard. The girl behind me was on her phone and didn't brake as hard. She rear-ended my newly owned car and the dude behind her rear-ended her. I had no idea what to do. It was my first time in an accident. So I pulled over as much as I could to the shoulder, which was barely existent. A tow truck driver saw the accident and called highway patrol for us. And I got the name and insurance details for the girl who hit me. The dude behind her stopped initially. But when I tried to get his details as well, he said that this car is a rental and left the scene without giving me any info. The girl's car was totaled. My car had some scuffed paint and a large dent in the rear bumper. I later found out that it extended all the way to the metal spare tire holder. I waited around for the gruff highway patrol officer to show up, who had very little patience with me. I didn't even know what the lane numbers were. He chastised both of us for letting the guy in the rental leave. My dad helped me file a claim through his insurance company since I hadn't even gotten insurance set up yet, due to having the car for not even 24 hours in all. The police report said the girl was at fault. My dad's insurance contacted the girl's insurance and I got my car inspected at the place they told me to go. It came out to $800 and they cut me a check for it. I cashed the check, waited for it to clear, bought a new computer with the money, and everyone was happy. Or so I thought. I got a call while I was at work from the dad of the girl who hit me. A series of calls, actually. The dad claimed that the damage to my car was pre-existing. And he says he asked the insurance not to pay me since he didn't think it was that badly damaged. I laughed it off. If the person at fault in an accident could just say, "Oh, I don't want to raise my rates, don't pay it out," then there wouldn't be a need for insurance. It was just idle, empty threats from someone who suddenly saw their rates spike. Then I was buying lunch a couple of days later and my card was declined. It was crazy. My card shouldn't have been declined, since I'm very good about keeping on top of all that. I checked my bank account and I had minus $600. I wasn't sure what happened at first. But then I saw that the insurance took the $800 check out of my bank account without notifying me because the dad disputed it. They believed him despite the photographic evidence I gave of the car being pristine before the accident. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money for gas or food. I called the insurance and they basically told me to screw off and that I needed to take him to court if I disagreed. My dad was in the middle of a small claims suit against his former employer at the time. So I asked him about how lawyers worked and my dad had his lawyer look into it for me. Turns out what the insurance did to me was illegal and equivalent to knowingly writing a bad check, with some pretty stiff penalties and fees. The lawyer mailed the letter and within days I got a call from the local branch apologizing and trying to settle to avoid a lawsuit. They cut me a deal. They would give me $1,600 if I agreed to drop everything and not sue them. I agreed. The very next morning, I had a truck from them show up at my doorstep to drop off the check. I wish I knew if they went after the girl's dad or not. The next story is called, Karen Tries to Ruin a Business. My cousin recently opened up her own salon. From a young age, she taught herself how to thread eyebrows and developed an interest in makeup and hair. Everyone in our extended family would go to her before events and on a monthly basis. In 2020, she had a full-time job that was non-salon related. But she decided to renovate the basement of her home to create a small salon space. She now spends her free time taking clients in her at-home salon and there's nothing but great reviews. Her sister helped with the renovations and now helps her with marketing the business and I help with the finances. We all support her and are really proud of her. But then 2020 started and this greatly affected her salon business. As a result, she implemented safety measures and our small team made sure to keep up with regulations in our city. Also, when our city was in lockdown, the salon was closed as it is not an essential service. Our city is once again in lockdown from the end of December to the end of January. The salon has been closed since the lockdown began. The salon's social media pages had been updated to let the current clientele know that the salon is closed. Now comes the Karen. Karen sees a community post from October, detailing a discount that the salon was having on a certain package we offer. She comments on the post, saying that she can't believe the salon is open in the middle of a lockdown when her salon has to be closed. Karen fails to notice that this post was made in October when salons were allowed to operate as long as they followed safety regulations. Karen doesn't bother checking more recent posts indicating that the salon was closed. My cousin doesn't see her reply at this time. The next day, 2 police officers show up at my cousin's door while she's at a doctor's appointment. The officers ask for my cousin and my aunt lets them know that she's not home right now. My aunt does not speak English very well and lets the officers know that she would call my cousin and ask her to come home. Maybe the officers didn't believe her but they insisted on coming inside the home. My aunt had already called my cousin as she was worried. My cousin asked what it was about, but my aunt didn't know. My cousin then asked if they had a warrant for anything. When she found out they didn't, she told her mum not to let them come inside and that she would be there in about 20 minutes. My cousin began driving home when my aunt called her to let her know that they simply left. Hearing this, my cousin was less worried and decided to go grocery shopping as planned before heading home. Turns out, the officers came back half an hour later and once again demanded to see my cousin. My aunt called my cousin again and asked her to come home, but in the 20 minutes she took to come home, the officers were gone. They had left a card and asked her to call back. My cousin managed to get a hold of the officers and was told that someone had reported her business. They claimed that she was operating during the lockdown and they had proof. My cousin knew this wasn't true as the salon had been closed for quite a while. By now, my cousin had seen the comment from earlier. She mentioned that she knew exactly what their so-called proof was, but the post in question was from October. My cousin was very upset as this post was not even close to being actual evidence of her operating now, in January. She was also very upset that they insisted on coming inside the house with no cause or warrant when they could clearly see that my aunt does not understand the language very well. At the end of the conversation, the police officer apologized to my cousin and we thought it was the end of it. You must be wondering how we know that Karen was the one who called the cops. Well, she told us. The next day, my cousin received a message she realized was from the woman who commented on the post. After some stupid messages from Karen, my cousin decided to block her. My cousin was happy this was all over. Her sister and I were still outraged at some of Karen's comments and how someone could make up lies about a small business that led to the cops terrifying my aunt. When my cousin told me about Karen, the fact that she had her own spa really stood out. I did some digging. Turns out Karen runs her own spa out of her house. Doing some more snooping, I found reviews from her clients on her business page that were posted on days that the city was under lockdown. The reviews could be from clients who received services before the lockdown and only now had a chance to write a review. To be sure, I found Karen's Instagram page. I decided to use her own trick against her. I created a new account with a generic name and followed her page so she couldn't see that I was related to my cousin. I then messaged her to ask about the prices for her services. And I found out that Karen was not operating from her home location due to lockdown restrictions. But she was traveling to her clients' homes, which is still against regulations. I then made up a lie about my home not having adequate space. I asked for her address so we could meet up at my friend's place somewhere between her and my locations. And she foolishly told me her address. During this time, I also tried joining other community groups that she was a part of. In one particular group, people in the community were promoting their small businesses. She had recently made a post about discounts on her services for the month of January. I immediately went online and submitted a report about her business still operating, including screenshots, her address, and full name. A few days passed by and I had forgotten to check up on it as I was busy with life again. I saw the incident report number on a sticky note I had on my desk and decided to check in. Apparently, this was not Karen's first offense. Karen had already been fined $750 for having a client in her home during the first lockdown in my city. After being fined, she decided to change her business model and go to the client's home instead. Now, she was fined $10,000. I was still following her on Instagram, so I decided to check it out. She had gone on a rant about how she was going to do very bad things to the person who reported her. She also mentioned that she was no longer allowed to run her business. I'm not sure what type of ban the regional police put on her, but I immediately deleted the account and exited the groups I had joined earlier. At the end of the day, Karen got what she deserved and I fulfilled my dream of pretending to be Sherlock Holmes. The last story is called, Neighbor Wouldn't Listen. Throughout the year I had noisy and thoughtless neighbors. They would often have loud parties that would go to the early hours of the morning. They were all in university, and of Indian descent. I had called the police and called the apartment manager, but nobody would do anything about it. I was losing sleep, and my work was becoming affected as well. I had spoken to them directly and they completely disregarded me. This went on for months, and I was writing out my lease to move somewhere else. One day, I'm sitting, watching TV on a nice spring day, and I have my windows wide open. I hear one of the neighbor's friends come over. He asks if he's coming out, and he says no, he needs to study for an important test he's taking the next day. This little snippet of information was all I needed. His friend leaves and he closes the door. I then proceeded to take my speakers and put them up against the walls, near where I knew his desk was. There were balconies outside, so I often saw him studying there. I began to blare metal straight at the wall. I put on my noise-cancelling headphones and just blasted it as loud as possible for hours. My landlord actually ended up coming into the apartment, because I didn't hear him knocking. And he's obviously flipping out, but I'm like, you never did anything when I complained, so good luck. My lease was set to be up soon anyway and I was leaving the state. The landlord leaves and I'm still amped up on adrenaline. It's quiet for maybe 20 minutes and I just intermittently start blasting music. The neighbor comes over irate, screaming that he has this big test, and he's got to pass it. Apparently, he is a medical student. I just laughed in his face and said, I don't hear anything. He then makes a fantastic mistake. He told me he didn't just have a final tomorrow, but it was finals week. Oh great, added stress for the week and the fact that I continue doing this every night for the rest of the week. I set my alarm to go off every 30 minutes and I would bang on the walls with a hammer and blast music. I was going a bit crazy as well, but that didn't matter, because I was messing up this guy's life. Around day 3 of no sleep for anyone, he comes over. He was screaming about how in India his family will disown him and all this nonsense. This just made me laugh and I just said the same thing over and over, that I didn't hear the music. I basically just started gaslighting him, acting really nice when he came over in a rage. That weekend the landlord gave me a notice that I had to leave, which I was fine with. He broke my lease and I wanted to get out anyway, so I got my deposit back. On the last morning I was there, I was moving out. I knocked on the neighbor's door at like 8 a.m. and asked him if he wanted this old air conditioner I was going to throw out otherwise. He was totally in a daze, and I don't know if he really understood what was happening any longer. Anyway, hopefully, I messed up his life, and his future a bit. He should have listened when I told him numerous times. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye bye.